Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Let me introduce myself quickly. Thomas, tech lead in France on the Next.js stack, so mostly React for the front end, and Nest.js, so mostly Node for the back end. I mostly work on large applications with a microservice architecture in a big company in France. The goal of this channel is to document my journey, building a micro SaaS that would serve as a showcase to show my skills to future clients or even generate extra income on top of my current salary. Even though I suspect that's less likely than the first goal I mentioned. Here, I'm going to document my strategy, detail some personal choices, and technical and business decisions. First of all, I should point out that I'm not necessarily a fanatic about being my own boss. Like many, I think I'd prefer it to be the case, but working in a company that pays its developers well would suit me just fine too. Ideally, I'd like to move to an English speaking country to get some international experience. Today, my number one goal, to be honest, is to leave France, mainly for tax reasons, low salaries, and the mindset. So that's really the number one goal. This little built-in public project allows me to kill two birds with one stone, meaning I can try to build a profitable SaaS, but if it doesn't work out, well, all is not lost, and I can use this content to convince future clients to work with me. The project I'm going to develop in the upcoming videos has two goals. So, as I said, first, to serve as a showcase to demonstrate my skills to future collaborators or clients, whether for freelancing or a permanent contract. Secondly, the project I'm going to build will be a side project, much less complex than the applications I'm used to working on. And that's just as well, because since I'm still employed, I don't have full-time hours to dedicate to this experiment. However, this type of project should help me develop ultra-important skills for finding a project idea that clients are actually willing to pay for. It will also teach me how to find or land clients and determine the right price relative to the value delivered to those clients. Finally, if I execute my project well enough, it might generate enough revenue for me to dedicate myself to it full time and scale this business to the point where I can maybe spend 100% of my time on it or even hire other people for it. So, that's the goal of the channel. Now, let's move on to the more strategic part. I've been reading up on the SaaS world for a while now. Being a developer by training, I still have a certain advantage in this industry. Since I'm a senior developer, I'm used to developing user interfaces, web APIs, and deploying them in the cloud. Even though I think that despite everything, this isn't the most important skill for making this type of project a profitable business, these skills are still very useful and represent a barrier to entry compared to people who don't know how to code at all, even though that's increasingly debatable with LLMs like Claude or ChatGPT. Next, it's not just about talking about SaaS, because that's way too vague. I'm going to target B2B SaaS, not B2C. So for the uninitiated, B2B means business to business, meaning our ideal client will be a company, like for example, Microsoft Teams, SAP, or HubSpot. Those are B2B SaaS. Unlike a B2C business, which means business to consumer, where you target individuals like Netflix, Spotify, or Amazon, those are B2C SaaS. There you go. So initially, I'm going to focus on B2B SaaS because generally, these software products have a much lower churn, meaning cancellation rate. Plus, for this type of business, if you choose the problem you're solving well, you can usually charge your clients much more than with B2C software. Finally, for my first SaaS, I'm going to build a Shopify app. Why? Because I like the e-commerce industry. I've already built Shopify stores for clients or for myself, so I know the platform well from a business perspective. I know the different features, the database objects, and so on. Next, there's an advantage to building this type of SaaS, which is admittedly platform dependent, but the big positive is that they have a simpler product scope and distribution to manage. a Shopify app usually solves a specific problem within an existing system. You don't have to rebuild a whole generalist platform or recreate the client's entire working environment. Deployment is easier, and there's no need to build a website in addition to the SaaS for the landing page, for example. Also, from a sales channel perspective, there's an existing distribution channel, more concentrated, targeted marketing with a dedicated marketplace. And I think there's less buying friction compared to a standalone SaaS, meaning a SaaS where you develop the whole stack and deploy it yourself on AWS, for example. There you go. The last argument would be that generally these are quick products to build. You can test and iterate quickly, and I don't necessarily need to build a SaaS for months in my cave before realizing that actually there are no clients for this need. Of course, Shopify isn't the only platform that allows independent developers to set up an app on their platform and bill through their marketplace. There are WordPress plugins, apps on Monday.com, or even Heroku. But because of my background, I have an affinity for Shopify. Though in the future, why not create software on other platforms? We'll see. So that's roughly the direction I'm going to take next. A mostly B2B oriented SaaS tied to the Shopify platform. So next, I'm going to do some research, because right now I just have a vague direction, but roughly the path is starting to take shape. I've simply explained the type of application I'm going to create and why, and in the next video, I'll get back to you with much more specific details about the app I want to build. But I'll tell you in advance, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'll probably target existing markets with competitors who already have revenue, which proves to me that there are indeed people willing to pay to solve the kind of problem my competitors are already solving. To be honest, I don't want to play the innovator, because often those innovative projects with zero competitors turn into total flops with zero revenue, zero traction, zero clients. So there you go. I've already teased the next episode a bit. Take care and see you next time.